Hello and welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Comfort Amadu. Let's bring you the headlines. Russia takes over presidency of United Nations Security Council, despite Ukraine's push to block the move. United Nations World Food Programme says billions of dollars needed to feed millions of hungry people around the world. Plus, African Development Bank designs program to build robust financial ecosystems across Africa to boost youth entrepreneurship. The United Nations World Food Programme warns that billions of dollars are needed to feed millions of hungry people around the world. The UN chief David Beasley says more funding and donations are required to avoid mass migration, destabilize countries and starving children and adults in the next 12 to 18 months. David Beasley praised increased funding from the United States and Germany's last year and urged China, Gulf nations, billionaires and other countries to do more. And the World Food Programme has a budget of $23 billion. This year, however, raising the funds remains a challenge. Beasley says he was able to convince the United States last year to increase its funding from about $3.5 billion to $7.4 billion. And Germany raised its contribution to $350 million to $1.7 billion. The UN chief says with $400 trillion worth of wealth on the planet, there's no reason for any child to die of starvation. And the WFP executive director says leaders have to prioritize the humanitarian needs that are going to have the greatest impact and stability in the society around the world. And he singled out several priority places, including Africa's Sahel region, as well as the East, including Somalia, northern Kenya, South Sudan and Ethiopia, Syria, which is having an impact on Jordan and Lebanon and Central, as well as South America. King Charles laid a wreath in memory of the victims of the Allied bombing in World War II during his visit to Hamburg at Nicola Memorial. As the rounds of his visit to Germany, Bola Sunday tells us more.
The visit of King Charles to the remains of a church in Germany's northern port city, severely damaged by the air raids, is a gesture on the last day of his 3-day tour of Germany. His first overseas state trip since ascending the British throne last year, designed to strengthen bilateral and European ties. The visit comes shortly before the 80th anniversary of the Allied bombing of Hamburg in July, known as Operation Gomorrah, that killed some 40,000 people and destroyed a broad strip of the city. In response to Nazi air raids on civilian targets in Poland and later London, the Allies dropped about 1.9 million tons of bombs on Germany in an effort to cripple German industry. The Allied raid killed some 500,000 people. Earlier, Charles also paid his respects at the memorial to the Kindertransports, a rescue mission that allowed some 10,000 Jewish children to flee Nazi-occupied Europe in the late 1930s, mostly to Britain. Bola, Sunday, NTA News.
Pope Francis has been discharged on Saturday from the Rome hospital where he was treated for bronchitis. Speaking to journalists before being driven away, he said, "I'm still alive." On Wednesday, the 86-year-old pontiff was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Polytechnic Hospital where he was being treated with antibiotics administered intravenously from bronchitis, and that's for bronchitis. And the Vatican added Francis had experienced difficulty breathing in the days leading up to his hospitalization. The Vatican said that before departing, Francis hugged the couple whose daughter died Friday night at the hospital And the pontiff's hospitalization has led to worldwide concern about the Pope's health in a Friday statement. However, Vatican spokesperson said that Francis' recovery has been normal, and a physiotherapy student at the hospital told the New York Times that Francis was in good hands at the hospital. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has reiterated calls for a speedy finalization of Zambia's debt restructuring as she visited the country in the last stop of a continental tour. Uche Ugochukwu reports that the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris paid a visit to the site of her maternal grandfather's home in Lusaka.
The United States has been pushing for creditors, which predominantly include China, to provide relief to Zambia, which in 2020 became the first African country to default on its foreign debt, estimated at $17.3 billion since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Vice President said U.S. will continue to advocate speedy finalization of Zambia's debt treatment and restructuring at a press conference in Lusaka after a meeting with Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema.
I am here to then do the work that we can through, for example, public-private partnerships to bring the kind of U.S. dollars and resources that I have mentioned, such as the $7 billion, to bear for the continent on what we can do to spur innovation, to invest in talent.
She said the international community needs to help countries such as Zambia regain their footing, reiterating a call for all bilateral official creditors to provide a meaningful debt reduction.
What is keeping us down for now, Vice President, is the debt overhang. We carry a debt burden that really is making it difficult for us to continue with our restructuring process of the economy. And it's actually beginning to negate on the gains we've already made.
How we can leverage this visit is just to continue to play up our interests at the level of trade, patronage in trade, patronage in investment, patronage in helping to portray us not as a place of crisis, not as an insecure place, but as a place with huge markets, with huge human resource potentials, where there are multinationals, where there are transnational companies, can outsource responsibilities to. We have to be seen as a destination for investment, not just a destination for aid.
Zambia is the last stop in Harris' three-nation trip to Africa, the latest push by the United States to deepen its engagement with the continent to counter the growing influence of China and Russia. Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris also paid a visit to the site of her maternal grandfather's home in Lusaka, where he lived as an Indian public servant in the 1960s. Gopalan was working with the newly independent Zambia government 6 decades ago on refugee resettlement and lived at 16 Independence Avenue, where Harris visited as a little girl. Harris said it was very special to go back, and she described her grandfather as one of her favorite people, with a lasting influence on her life. She said he believed in the nobility of public service and in fighting corruption, as these were things he would talk about a lot, and she did not think until she was older that she realized how that subconsciously influenced the way she thinks. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
The relationship between Africa and the United States has been reshaped by policies and strategic re-engagement, and this has been exemplified in recent and present visit by U.S. officials to Africa. Charles Alfat tells us how these countries are leveraging the opportunities for socio-economic benefits.
Africa is an important investment destination for many leading countries, particularly the developed world. And for the United States, there is real enthusiasm towards increasing two-way trade and investment. The African continent has a unique place in human history, widely believed to be the cradle of humankind. In December last year, Joe Biden had U.S. African Leaders Summit on promoting ties in trade, climate change, and human rights protection, Anthony Blinken and his team visited the sub-Saharan Africa, South Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Rwanda. And now, Vice President Harris is on the shores of Africa on history-making trip amid U.S.-China competition. The U.S. intends to build a theme of African innovation and technology, regional and food security, women empowerment and democracy. The U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris is visiting the three countries where the government is investing in democracy. There are more that these visits present to the countries, and how are African countries taking advantage of these opportunities?
Most of these foreign direct investments that we require are in the global north that have basically seen tremendous development. So there's the need for that. There's also the need to also ensure that there's a deepening South-South cooperation, because we are the ones that can lift ourselves out of the scourge of the whatever crisis that we're faced with, whether be it economy, be it leadership crisis, be it security crisis. We are the ones, it's our problem. This is an African crisis. We need to wake up to that responsibility.
That visit is very significant to strengthen existing relations, which has strong economic benefits, and other social benefits.
The United States believe Africa is critical to addressing global challenges and views visits to the continent as another opportunity to consult and engage with partners on shared objectives. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
And Bola Brookson's Sunday reports that top political leaders in Finland are ramping up their campaigns for more last-minute votes as the 2023 parliamentary elections is scheduled for this Sunday, when Finnish citizens will elect 200 members that make up their parliament.
Politicians have been showing up to the gathering event of voters aiming to win their support and votes by meeting and talking to them one-on-one. Rika Pura, leader of the nationalistic Finns party, made her presence at a campaign in the southern Vantaa city. The campaign was held in a makeshift market where visitors usually come for fairground attractions, fresh flowers and baskets.
Everybody must have enough money to live on. Education and healthcare must be taken care of, or at least the level of service doesn't drop.
The elections will be closely contested among three parties: the ruling Social Democratic Party, led by Prime Minister Sanna Marin, the opposition Finns Party, and the National Coalition Party.
Several parties have announced they will not cooperate with us. The largest of them is the Social Democrats. If Sanna Marin was serious and it was not an election strategy, we would likely negotiate with the Conservatives.
As none of the parties has enough support to win single-handedly, observers say a post-election coalition is inevitable. But who will cooperate remains a mystery. Bola, Brooksland Sunday, NTA News.
And Turkey Radio Television officially commences its TRT Africa service with the official launch of its social media platforms in English, French, Hausa and Swahili. Onenge Fineface reports that the launch was at the TRT Africa Broadcasting Summit in Istanbul.
Turkey's public broadcaster TRT is heralding a new era on the continent. To cement this partnership, Turkey launches TRT Africa to make the voice of Africa louder.
Telling the African story as it is the motivation for this ambitious undertaking by the Turkey Radio Television, TRT.
Therefore, one of our immediate challenges is to make African broadcasting a source of inspiration for the promotion of culture, economy, and know-how of our people.
The TRT hopes to achieve this target by building collaboration with public service broadcasters in Africa.
We want TRT Africa to be different from all what we are seeing in Africa. All the volume of news we are receiving from Africa. We want TRT to be different. We want TRT to help us to talk about Africa as it is, not as journalists think it is.
Beyond media relations, this partnership promotes Turkey's diplomatic ties with countries in Africa. In Istanbul, Turkey, Onengiye Fine Face, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria. More reports in a moment. Welcome back. The African Development Bank is currently designing to roll out youth entrepreneurship investment banks, new financial institutions that will rebuild a robust financial ecosystem around the businesses of young people across Africa. President of the bank, Dr. Akinwumi, additionally revealed this at the recently launched investment in the digital and creative industry project in Abuja. Details with Justin Bemunyi.
The iDice program is designed to support enterprise and skills development, access to demand-driven digital and creative skills, entrepreneurship skills, and ICT-enabled infrastructure, as well as expand access to finance. The African Development Bank is partnering with the Nigerian government on the $618 million program, and the bank is providing $170 million in financing to the program and has mobilized additional co-financing of $217 million towards the program. The African Development Bank sees the initiative as timely, strategic, and transformative, as it will build the ecosystems to support more competitive entrepreneurs powered by digital technologies.
We are launching hope for the youth. We are launching platforms that will enhance the ability and capacity of Nigeria's youth to thrive. We are launching the creation of millions of jobs. We are retooling Nigeria to be more competitive in an increasingly digital world. We are creating hope for a new Nigeria driven by the power of the youth.
Additional affirms the prospect that the size of Africa's digital economy will rise from $115 billion today to $712 billion by 2050, saying most of this growth is already being driven by 4 countries: Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, and Egypt. He notes that the expansion of the digital economy is driven by several factors, including the rapid growth in the youth population, the ever-present nature of access to mobile phones, especially smartphones, increasing investments in supportive digital infrastructure, and the spark in digital entrepreneurship and innovations during the economic challenges imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is what has necessitated the bank to design and will soon be rolling out youth entrepreneurship investment banks that will build robust financial ecosystems around the businesses of young people across Africa.
The iDice program is set to be a real game changer. It will help to create 6.1 million direct and indirect jobs and equip more than 175,000 young people with technology and creative skills needed to drive innovation and foster entrepreneurship.
The benefits of the program to Nigeria's economy are projected to be worth $6.4 billion. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
The republics of Cuba and Nicaragua, through their president, have joined the growing list of countries congratulating Nigerian's President-elect Bola Tinubu on his victory in the February 25th presidential polls. In a statement issued by Tunde Rahman in the office of Nigerian's President-elect, the Developing Eight Organizations for Economic Cooperation, D8, has also extended felicitations to the President-elect on his electoral success in a congratulatory letter to Asiwaju Tinubu, signed by President Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez. The Cuban government described his election as a reaffirmation of the will to continue to strengthen the historic relations of friendship between the two countries. On its part, Nicaragua expressed her best wishes for Nigeria's peace and prosperity in the D8 statement signed by its Secretary General, Nigerian-born Ambassador Isiaka Abdulkadir Imam. The organization expressed confidence that Nigeria under the Tinubu-led government would be more peaceful and prosperous and emerge as an economic powerhouse in Africa and on the global stage. And Russia has assumed the presidency of the United Nations Security Council. This is in spite of Ukraine's urging members to block the move. Uche Ugochukwu reports.
Russia has taken the presidency of the UN Security Council, despite Ukraine urging members to block the move. Each of the Council's 15 members take up the presidency for a month on a rotating pattern. The last time Russia had the presidency was in February 2022. It launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It means the Security Council is being led by a country whose presidency is subject to an international arrest warrant for alleged war crimes. The International Criminal Court, which is not a UN institution, issued the warrant for Vladimir Putin last month. Despite Ukraine's complaints, the United States said it could not block Russia, a permanent council member, from assuming the presidency. The other permanent members of the council are the UK, the US, France, and China. The role is mostly procedural, but Moscow's ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, told the Russian TASS news agency that he planned to oversee several debates, including one on arms control. He said he would discuss a new world order that is coming to replace the unipopular one. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba called Russia's presidency the worst joke ever for April Fool's Day and a stark reminder that something is wrong with the way international security architecture is functioning. Ukraine's presidential advisor Mikhailo said the move was another rape of international law as an entity that wages an aggressive war, violates the norms of humanitarian and criminal law, destroys the UN Charter, neglects nuclear safety, can't head the world's key security body. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
Joining us via Zoom to speak on the Russia presidency of the Security Council is Abu Hamisu, a security expert in the Sahel region, lecturer at the University of Abuja. So you're welcome to NTA International.
Thank you for having me.
All right. What would you say is your view about Russia occupying the presidency of the United Nations Security Council, especially at this time that the country is at war with Ukraine?
Well, I feel that Russia's presidency or heading the presidency of the Security Council is quite different from the issue of the invasion of Ukraine. This is not the first time that members of the Security Council have taken opportunity of their eminent position in the United Nations organization to abuse smaller countries. I felt that it is a rotational thing, and once it is a rotational thing, nobody can stop the wheel of progress because it is meant to be like that, and every other member of the Security Council or member of the United Nations that ought to take the leadership of that particular organization ought not to be denied the fact that he's supposed to take the leadership of that organization, provided it is not using it to abuse the process or to abuse any other nation.
All right. So do you see this in any way escalating the war or seeing Russia making a move to end the conflict with Ukraine?
You see, let us call a spade a spade. The United Nations have been existing, and the bigger countries continue to abuse the smaller countries without recourse to international norms, regulations, and laws. Were in this planet Earth when America decided to invade Afghanistan, invade Iraq, and then mobilize other European countries to topple Gaddafi in Libya, which is the bane of our security in this country. Majority of the arms that are being used to kidnap, to fight the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people are coming through that very particular channel that was opened as a result of the war against Gaddafi. So it is nothing new that Russia has invaded Ukraine. The only thing is that Ukraine is being supported by the West that is making issues out of it, whereas they've committed more atrocities than Russia in terms of even what Russia is doing in Ukraine. So what I'm saying in essence is that that particular organization has even outlived its usefulness. It is just a sheer shell that is being used to deceive third world countries, feeling that they are being safeguarded by the Security Council or the membership of United Nations, which is not the case. No African country has been protected. The war is still raging in Mali. We still have issues in Burkina Faso. Nobody is saying anything about those. In Nigeria, Northeast, we still have issues around Boko Haram. So what are we really talking about? Why is it that we are just making issues out of nothing that has to, it is a war between two countries, for God's sake. Let them sort themselves out. Anybody that has interest, let them settle it. If they want to use the United Nations, they should use it. If they want to use bilateral or multilateral channels, they should use it. But that Russia's leadership of Security Council, I'm not seeing it stopping the war, because it is a war that the two parties are still contending. Russia felt it is
okay, so I may have to come in there, sir. So in sorting themselves out, do you foresee any reaction from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization following this development? Talking about NATO.
Of course, I blame Ukraine in this crisis, because nobody can use my territory to fight a proxy war. You can't use me to fight your own war. If you want to fight war, you should go to your adversary directly. So don't use me as a proxy. Today, Ukraine is being destroyed. It is not America, it is not Germany, it is not France. And these are the group of countries that are prodding Ukraine to continue to challenge Russia. What Russia is talking about today was the same thing America was complaining about during the Cold War, when Russia attempted to install missiles in Cuba. And that led to blockade. And that blockade, since 1960s up to today, is still subsisting. And then you cannot do business with Cuba. You cannot do anything in Cuba because of American blockade. And what America was talking about then was right to existence, that they want to protect themselves. They can't allow their neighbor to be used by another power to fight them. And then that is exactly what America is doing in Ukraine today. So what are we talking about? So
thank you so much, Mr. Hamisu, for your insight. And that's the much we can take. We'll connect with you again to speak more on this developing issue.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and that concludes the news. Many thanks for watching. I'm Comfort Amadu. Do connect with the NTA and its campaign against rape and rapists.